Hello, everybody, and welcome to Problem Solve Her podcast. I'm your co-host, Chloe, along with my girl,
Dagmar.
Daggy's in the house. Dagmar's in the house. Chloe's in the house. The kitties are in the house.
Yep.
Oliver's sleeping in the house. I still say Happy New Year because it's January. I say it all of January, and I don't really care what anyone else says. And I hope that the start of your new year, Daggy, is going well. And we are in, I want to say I want to call it 5 months where we've really been going, right? Because in the beginning, we were just starting and figuring it out, how we were going to do the podcast, what the subject lines were going to be. You figured out everything in terms of the technology and editing and all those fabulous things. And I don't think people realize, especially when you don't have an engineer, you don't have the booking agent, and we're doing everything ourselves and we're figuring it out, that it's a lot of work and there's a lot of time and a lot of energy. That being said, we love having this podcast on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and Instagram and our website, ProblemSolvHer.com, no E solve. And I think what we both realized is that this can go in different directions. You can start a brand and a movement, and it can go in different areas. And we're learning that 25% of men on the podcast alone listen or watch. On TikTok, it's like 65% men. And our Instagram page is kind of split, which tells us that men and women of all different ages really can come together, motivate each other, give inspiration. And we love having on unique individuals that share their stories and their experiences. And last week we had on our youngest ever member to the Problem Solver family, Moan, who gave such great insight and wisdom at only, 19. She just turned 19. Oh, I have to text her. And I think it's interesting, the subject that we're going to speak about today, because I think it has a lot to do with everything that's going on in the world and kind of the place that we're at. So I just want to hear your thoughts and tell us what we're going to talk about today.
I think it's interesting that you started talking about the podcast a little bit and how everything developed, because at the end, we're creating family here, right? So at the beginning, we started talking about problems and what solutions and the downside and the upside of the solutions. And little by little, just from the feedback we got from our listeners and our watchers, we really trended into real connections, real life, real talk environment now, where the readers, listeners, and the watchers really create the content we create. And I think that that's beautiful, because that's family. You want to go to a place where you feel safe and where you feel heard and where you feel loved and where you feel understood and where you can be the person you really are. You don't have to hide behind any status or any life situation or any illusion. And I think especially where we are in the world today, having a place like this where you can come and just feel good, and your nervous system and your gut tells you this is where home is. I think that's beautiful.
I love that. I love everything you just said. And you're right. We are creating this space for family, and family means something different to everybody, right? So I don't know when the trend started, maybe like 6, 7 years ago, I started hearing about Friendsgiving. During Thanksgiving, you spend it with your family. But a lot of people have a lot of close friends that before Thanksgiving, a few days before, they have it together. Or let's say their families are in different countries. They actually share it with friends that they consider family. And when my parents first moved to Jamaica full time, I'm going back like 17 years ago, and I was working and living in New York, and sometimes I wasn't able to get away even to go just for Thanksgiving or Christmas. And I would spend it with Joanna, who you met, our producer extraordinaire that was on here, and her family. Because, Jews and Italians are like the same people. Talk with their hands, we eat a lot, it's all about family. And I spent I want to say many years, Thanksgiving and Christmas with them, also with my family. But it's nice that they shared that with me and made me a part of their family because I've known them for so many years. So it's interesting how different people can help shape us, whether it's your blood family as in your DNA, or just people that you choose to be family. Like you're my sister for life, even if like we have an argument or we disagree on something, or we don't, my feelings might get hurt, or yours may get hurt, or it doesn't matter at the end of the day because we're family no matter what. And even when we're going through something, and I text you, we're like we argue like sisters. We don't argue often, but if we have something, it's I would think I don't have sisters. You do. I would think of it as more like a sisterly thing. So your family always, no matter what. And I think it's also important to kind of maybe share each other's stories, you and I, of certain things growing up with our families that kind of helped shape us who we are as adults and who we chose as our chosen family. That makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. What you just said about family, just because you mentioned it with Thanksgiving and Christmas, I found it so interesting. In Germany, you would spend Christmas with your family, like your family, not with friends and not with neighbors, whatever. But here in the United States, Thanksgiving or Christmas, wherever I went to, there's always people you love invited, and they don't have to be direct family. And I think with the spirit of Christmas, especially with the spirit of Christmas, that's beautiful.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that part of those holidays, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the same with a lot of Jewish holidays, like for instance, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, Pesach, Passover, you could have a family friend could call and say, "Hey, so and so's in town, and they want to partake in break fast, which for Passover is after you fast, and then you eat, you have a meal, and you drink, and you might not even know that person, you might have never met them, but they want to participate." I've done that before when I've been at different cities traveling for work or whatever it may be, or I've seen that happen, and people have come to my home or other friends' homes. So I think it's all about inviting people in and sharing. And the term sharing is caring. And for me, family is several different things. Growing up between New York and Jamaica, I was lucky enough to have in New York, a lot of my dad's family lived in New York. So I was able to spend a lot of time with some of my cousins, and my favorite aunt, my dad's sister, was like, we were like this. And her husband, my uncle, I was close with him, and some other family members. My great aunt lived in Manhattan. And I was lucky to have that side of my family, which is very strong, right? Very bold, and tell it like it is, and really show who you are, and don't be afraid to say anything. And if it hurts somebody's feelings, that's okay. You can talk about it, but you would at least share with them. And then, I would say to my auntie, "Well, that was harsh," and she'd be like, "Okay, you want to discuss it? That's fine, but I'm still standing on my opinions." And I remember my great grandmother, my dad's grandma, Kitty, tiny little thing. I mean, like maybe 5 feet tall, maybe 100 pounds wet. And at the time, she was in her mid 90s, and she was living at this, she would not let us call it a nursing facility. Don't you dare. It was a very high end hotel. Okay. It was a hotel, and then they converted it into a facility for elderly people. And it was on Long Island where I grew up, but in Long Beach, all the way on the South Shore. It was on the water. It was a beautiful place. And the King David Hotel was very famous. And then they converted it. It was mostly Jewish people that lived there. And she came to my dad and I, and she said, "I'm going to marry my boyfriend." We're like, "You're like 95 years old." And she looked at me, she said, "I didn't ask you. I'm telling you, if that's what I want to do, that's what I'm doing." And I was like, "You know what? Good for you." She married him at 95,
How old was the boyfriend?
97, and she lived till 98 years old.
Oh,
God
good for
bless her.
her.
She had a lot of wisdom. But, I think that's part of family. It shapes who we are. And as we grow up, things that you take, little nooks and crannies from family members. And then I had my good core group of girlfriends that I grew up with, and most of us are still good friends. A few of them have been on the podcast. And those are like my sisters. I didn't have any sisters growing up. I have a brother. So family could be whoever you want it to be. But our blood relatives, especially when you grow up in a household with them, you don't leave until you're, in your 20s. they have an impact, right? An effect on who we become as adults. So I don't know what it's like growing up with sisters, but I'd love to hear what that's like. I always wished I had them.
Yeah. Let's just talk about the positive and negative impact your family has on you. Because as you um, suggested the topic, immediately I thought of one ex-boyfriend. What was interesting, because of the environment we all grow up, or the environment we're used to, we think that's reality. So he defined his family as the people going to the sports pub, because when he went there, he always made sure he was in a good mood, and he he was a gentleman to the women and a buddy to the men, and he was throwing shots for everybody. So everybody loved him, right? So
Everybody loves the guy giving the drinks, I'll tell you right now. And thanks them.
going there really gave him a feeling of being home. So, and then he was a regular, right? It was not just that he went there once in a while. He liked to go there, like, for sure, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So then when you're regular, everybody knows you, you know everybody, you come there and it becomes your family. And I think the challenge of that is you make it depending on an environment, because when you meet the people outside the pub, totally different. So I asked him why, because he had 9 sisters, right? And he had a huge family back home, huge. But he didn't have contact with anybody. There was a lot of trauma in the family he grew up. So
Where
he
did he
really,
grow up?
huh?
Where did he grow up?
Kentucky. Was a
So
lot of
Southern
trauma.
block. There's a Southern block, Kentucky. Okay.
So it was a lot of trauma. So he knew when he would be like the performer, right? And goofy and make jokes, everybody would love him. So that's what he would do. He would go to the pub and become another person, because outside the pub, he was an introvert. He was a quiet one. He didn't speak up a lot, but at the pub, he was like, oh my God, the show must go on. And it amazed me how this can be a self-created family, but just because I didn't experience it before. But that's what I thought about, as you said, the importance of family, because during COVID, the pub had to stay closed. Oh my God. It was like the world ends. There's nothing anymore in the world. There's no happiness in the world. There's nothing for me in the world anymore. And oh my God, this is just amazing.
Interesting. Family is, again, it's whoever you want it to be. It could be, I mean, a whole TV show was made on TV show Cheers. Is all about being Ted Danson. It's a pub. Everyone's at the pub. And the whole show is based on that and all their relationships. And right now, I'm seeing this trending in the news. I mean, there's so much going on in the world, and we don't talk about religion and politics, but we do talk about pop culture. And I brought this up on an episode we did a month or so ago about Victoria Beckham's documentary that I watched on Netflix, where she said, after I left Spice Girls, people saw me as like this very cold, very kind of bitchy woman. And she's like, this is just me. And I loved her for saying that. And there's been, when you're this big of a figure, especially in England, they're the they're the Kardashian family in the UK, but way bigger and way more massive. And they've honestly, after everyone says is after the royal family, it's like the Beckhams. And I thought that was so interesting. And all my friends in the UK that live there say that. And their eldest son, who they had very young before they were married, I think she was like 19 or 20 when she had him, Brooklyn, there was this whole thing that, the family's all so close. And you see in the documentary, and you see with David, her husband, and, they've been together forever. And all the kids are very close. They have one daughter, and the daughter with David and his reminds me of me and my dad. I mean, you should see how he protects her when paparazzi come, the way he puts his arm around her. Like, this is a close family. I mean, no one's acting here. At least it doesn't seem like that to me. And the eldest son now married this American girl whose father is very wealthy, and they kind of started distancing themselves from the family. And it was like, what's happening here? And about 24 hours ago, the son explosively released very personal information about the family, whether it's true or not. And, stating why they don't talk anymore. And it was about his wedding, and his mom was dancing with him inappropriately, which I don't even know what that means. There was 500 people there. No one else said anything about it. And all the other kids are very close with them. And I thought in that moment, God, family is so important. I can't imagine if I came from a famous family like that, and if I was the child doing it, right? Or if I was the parent listening, it's so personal. And no matter how you feel or how upset you are, which is understandable, we don't know all the ins and outs of what really occurred. To put it out into public knowledge like that for all the world to see, I think that that's really strong. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but it just reminded me that there are a lot of different types of families. It doesn't matter who you are, but all families go through things.
Like at the end, the family is like the bigger whole of your little seed, right? Because you're part of the family, your siblings are part of the family, your parents, grandparents, uncle, nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever. So you all create something new as a whole. And I think what you just said is so important, that what you see from the outside can be the same as the inside or not. Is
We don't know.
like the illusion we want to give others, what we let others in, right, to see.
Absolutely. And it's like they say, there's two sides of every story, and that there's the truth. And families can go through things, and I'm talking about blood relatives now. And there's also this saying, like, no one can touch you to your core, or can upset you or stress you out or give you anxiety like a family member, because they know you more than anybody, and you're a part of them. And you share DNA with someone. There's this, synergistic kind of connection that can be amazing, and then at times it can be hurtful. And I think, you know, I learned in my 30s, I want to say early to mid 30s, that, family really it's everything. It was so important to me. And my parents would say to me when I was younger, you think you know everything. You don't know anything yet. You have no idea. And then I got to say, I was like, I really appreciated my parents. I really took their advice, which I still do today. And if it's too much, or if it becomes, like my dad yesterday, my mom said, all right, Rob, enough, like, step back, because I know he means well, but sometimes he's like so involved in trying to help his children. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Parents will always try to do that. And then on the flip side, it's like you want to impress your parents no matter what. You could be 70 and your mom's 95 and you still want to impress her. Parents obviously want to be proud of their children, but children always want to impress. They want their look at me, look at me. It doesn't matter how old you are. Uh, and I think that with friends, it's different. Friends that you consider family is more, I'm never trying to impress my friends, or think to myself, do they think I'm fabulous? And do they think I'm successful? No, for the friendship side of people I will call family, it's more, do they love me? Do I love them? Do we trust each other? And is there a mutual bond and respect there? So there's different types of families, and we all have to appreciate who we have in our lives. Really, truly, the ones that we love and that we care about.
Yeah, absolutely. What you just said, I always lived with families my whole life, and then coming to the United States, I was really lucky that the realtor came with a family who sold us our house. And he had a German mom-in-law, Mama Jean, who became my mama. And then they invited us for all Christmas parties, Thanksgivings, for all birthday parties, Easter, whatever. And it was just beautiful, because being part of something bigger than you are is a beautiful experience, and having a home to go to celebrate meant a lot to me.
Absolutely. I felt that same way when my parents were in Jamaica and I would go to Joanna's and her family, and they've always treated me like this. Like I'm just like another child of theirs. It wasn't like, oh yeah, and Chloe's here, it's like we're all here together. And you probably felt that same way. And to be like an extended part of somebody's family that you're not related to. I had growing up also friends that I would spend a lot of time at their houses. They would spend a lot at mine. I had one of my best friends from college. She came to Jamaica like 7 or 8 times, and my parents adored her. And it's nice to have family that you grew up with, and then family you choose as your friends who you want to be around. But I think that at the end of the day, it's about coming together, and that's what brings us that bond. You feel like a family coming together, not just like a surface level relationship like I have with some people in my building, the dog moms, we say hi to each other. How you doing? How's your weekend? Those are people I'm friendly with, right? Just like I'm sure you have neighbors, you see them out when you're with the kitties outside or that you just talk to. And then people that you're just so happy that they're in your life that you consider them a part of the family and you truly honestly appreciate the friendship because it means so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Mama Jean, when she didn't hear from me when I was busy with work, she called. She said, "Hey, didn't hear from you for 2 days. Are you still alive?"
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That Yeah. Or I'll send if I don't hear someone go, hi, fingers broken, like because you can't call or text. Yeah. It's important. Family is what shapes us and molds us. And family is what this podcast is about and what we're trying to achieve here. And
Yes.
we we continue to ourselves hopefully inspire others and motivate and the women and men that we have on. And we just want to continue our work and, giving people a voice. And I have a friend of mine who's like so diehard with the podcast. And she drives around a lot in Florida because she goes to Vero Beach and then she comes here. And she's like, every time there's a new episode, it just, warms me up. And she had lost a parent a few years ago at a young age, her mom. And she's like, every time I listen to an episode or I listen with my dad, like she listened to my dad's episode with her dad and Dylan's. And she's like, it's inspiring. So if we can just touch a few people, that's great. And we love that. And then we're also, the coaching is really important to us. And whether it's helping young people have financial freedom, which is something I'm really trying to work on to get, work with more of those, that generation, because I feel like they're not great with money. And I wasn't great with my 20s with money either. And just where the world is today and having reset. And then also, I know that for you, it's really important to work with clients, especially in the AI space and with SEO and technology and driven e-commerce companies. And you're excellent in that realm. And I just want to help people monetize. Well, you do also, right? Obviously, we want them to make more money and to book a build a business and teach people really how to negotiate and close, which is my specialty. I think a lot of people lack that, even if they have their own business, and it's so important. So that's what we do. And that's why we are fabulous. And that's why we're doing the podcast for all of you guys. And we love you, we hear you, and we see you. We hope that you continue to watch and to grow with us and to listen with us. Daggy, what's your takeaway?
My takeaway is family is home.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's my takeaway is family is whoever you want it to be. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody.
Thank you.
Love you.
Just a quick note before we end. This conversation is for inspiration and empowerment only. It's not medical, mental health, or legal advice. We are not doctors, therapists, or lawyers. Just women sharing real stories and personal truth. Always seek professional guidance for your unique situation.